started. Welcome to the December 26, 2018 Newton Town Council meeting. If everyone please rise for the pledge of allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ms. Reed, if you'll take the roll, please.
Mr. Dixon?
Here.
Mrs. Diglio? Mr. Flynn?
Here.
Mr. Bloffer?
Here.
Mayor LaFois?
Here, and yes, Councilwoman Diglio is out of town and won't be joining us today. So in accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act, notice of the special meeting was given to the two newspapers of record and posted on the official bulletin board on January 8th, 2018. In your packets, you received the minutes from December 10th, regular meeting, as well as executive session. Are there any changes, amendments, deletions, additions? None? Okay. Can I have a motion to approve those?
I make a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll second.
I have a motion by Councilman Schaffer and a second by Deputy Mayor Flynn. Roll call, please.
Mr. Dixon?
Yes.
Mr. Flynn?
Yes.
Mr. Bloffer?
Yes.
Mayor LaFois?
Yes. All right. At this point in the meeting, the Town Council welcomes comments from any member of the public on any topic. To help facilitate an orderly meeting and to permit the opportunity for anyone who wishes to be heard, speakers are asked to take one turn at the microphone and please limit their comments to 5 minutes. The clerk will keep time. If reading from a prepared statement, please provide a copy and email a copy to the clerk's office after making your comments so it will be properly reflected in the minutes. Anyone from the public who wishes to speak at this time? All right. Seeing none, we'll close that portion of the meeting. Move on to council and manager reports. I just have a couple of things. As everyone may recall, last meeting we had a presentation by Isabel Costello regarding her weekend bag program, and since then she's gotten some great support from the community. And Isabel also, there's an article in the Herald, I believe was yesterday or today, about Isabel and the work that she's been doing, which is fantastic. I had the pleasure, I guess a week ago Friday, of attending Congressman Gottheimer's Local Heroes award ceremony, in which there were 42, I believe it was 42 local heroes from municipalities all across the 5th Congressional District, and Isabel was one of them to be recognized. So, you know, she was quite humbled to be amongst so many people in and around our community that are doing great work, and she was one of 2 teens that were there, so the other teenagers at the end, they were kind of, you know, comparing notes, and I think actually handed each other their packets of materials, hoping to collaborate potentially on a project later. So, you know, it's great to have someone recognized from the town of Newton, and I believe it was TAP that actually nominated Isabel, and she was there with her family. It was just a wonderful day, and as a matter of fact, when I was talking to her afterwards, we were taking some pictures, and someone from the Office of Admissions and the Dean's Office, it was at Ramapo, the ceremony was at Ramapo, and someone from Admissions and from the Dean's Office approached Isabel and asked her if she was interested in Ramapo, did she have time for a tour today, and that they would be interested in keeping in touch with her, and wanted her to strongly consider Ramapo without even any other background information on her, so I thought that was really wonderful. Deputy Mayor Flynn and I, as well as Mr. Russo, at our planning board recently, looked at a project off of Diller Avenue. It's the Thor Properties, the parking lot the parking lots and the lots that they own there. So more to come on that, but there was a good, healthy discussion. It was nice to have the team from Thor Labs back in front of us again, as they are working on some projects in and around the properties that they own. So, you know, that project, just as a debrief a little bit, is just to grade some of that property and parts that are already parking, just to resurface, stripe, and make it look much nicer. So it was a long marathon planning board meeting, but it was a good one for sure. Mr. Russo, I think in yesterday or today's New Jersey Herald, there was also an article about the junior firefighter legislation that Senator Oraho and Assemblyman Worth and Space are looking at. There are a couple municipalities in the county that have passed resolutions in support of the legislation that just expands the opportunities for junior firefighters for the municipalities. So I just want to take a look at that to see if that's something that Newton might be interested in as we look to continue to recruit for our volunteer fire department. And then that leads me into the fire over at Brookside, and I just can't give enough kudos and thanks and appreciation to our first responders. It was our police department, our OEM, our fire department, the various first aid squads, the sheriff's department, citizens from in and around the town. I mean, when I look back in 2008, 9, and 10, when we were designing Tower 804, and we had to build that fire truck specifically for Brookside Terrace, you know, the height of that, the ladder to be for Brookside Terrace and other tall buildings, Avalor and others. You know, you hope it comes a day when you never have to use that piece of apparatus for a structure fire in the top floor of those buildings, and that day came. And the community's response was fantastic. You know, I think the Herald captured, we couldn't make coffee enough to accommodate all the residents that fortunately were able to get across the street into Firehouse 1. So I walked into Hags, and Dan and Denise were like, absolutely, you know, what do you need? Coffee. And I asked for coffee only, and the next thing you know, they were coming with eggs and bagels and bread. And, you know, our public DPW was fantastic, helping with closure on the streets, running to get water, anything that needed to be done. And I know it just happened to be that Councilman Diglio and I were in town, and you know, I wasn't at the office yet that day, and we were able to go over and just say, hey, where do you need help? But I will tell you, the vast majority of the residents of Brookside we're grateful, we're happy, we're happy in the fact that the response was so great, and that everyone was there to show support, and Dr. Green showed up to make sure that the kids that were going to school made it to school. I mean, it was just this, like, if you had to write a plan, I know Tom's really big about writing plans and accounting for responses, and OEM works on these what-if scenarios, but if you could have written a plan for how the day went, and it had gone on perfectly, it would have. The Herald kept checking in, TAP was there. I mean, just the community came out in abundance, and then the ability to kind of get people in systematically, and I know there were reports of how many people went to the hospital and things, but to understand the people that are living over in Brookside most of them are elderly, they have health issues. It's a population that's certainly vulnerable, and I think that not only was the response appropriate, but it was just a really great show of solidarity. 12 departments responding from all over the county. It was just unfortunate incident, but incredible response. And I just can't thank everyone enough for being there, and the work that still continues over there in terms of inspections and getting the building continue to be safe for the residents that are there. Deputy Mayor Flynn.
Well, that was a thorough follow-up. Thank you for that news, as always. The one thing I'll just elaborate on, so there was a long planning board meeting that we had last Wednesday. The one thing that I noted that I wanted the planning board to look at, and the council as well, is the ordinances and regulations surrounding generators on commercial properties. So there's been quite a few applications for commercial properties going on they have to go to the planning board for various reasons, for like offset distances, where it could easily be, I feel like it could be approved through more of an administrative role through the construction department and zoning department, rather than having to go for an emergency generator. Because most commercial facilities, it seems like, are upgrading to generator standby. So I think it's something that we should look at. If you sit on the planning board and you see what goes on with what they have to go through, it just doesn't really, to me, feel like something that we should really be weighing in on.
Yeah, I think I would agree.
Yeah, we did something similar probably around 2009 or 10, Tom, with the Historic Commission, and kind of streamlining processes too for applicants and what can be approved, in-house versus going to the Historic Commission. So I think that's a great suggestion, something to be looked at for sure.
Maybe like unless you want it in the front yard.
Right.
Yeah.
Or makes a lot of noise.
Yeah,
or,
seriously.
Yeah.
And maybe proximity to residential properties, but outside that,
Just let it-
construction
just let
permit.
it be.
Yeah, and
That's all I have.
thank you. Which reminded me of one other notification that we got in our packets regarding the meeting that Councilwoman Diglio attended with Senator Orro's office, and then that resolution fell up as well. I don't know if that was attached in there, but to take a look at. All right, Councilman Diglio is not here. Councilman Schlaffer?
Not a lot from me. EDC meeting was canceled, and so was the Spring Street Merchants meeting as well, so pretty light for me.
Okay. Okay.
Just pass the torch to them.
Yeah.
All right. December 11th Board of Ed meeting. They were discussing subscription busing. It would allow people to be able to pay for the open spots that they have on the current buses that they have. This isn't adding new buses. However, if a student that required a spot were to come along and need it, because we have to provide to a certain population, then they would obviously just bump somebody off. And they were looking at kind of like a possible lottery system for the people that would be interested in paying for the spot. Full day preschool starting on January 2nd, so that's good. And the district is addressing some school safety concerns. At Miriam, they're going to be hiring a security monitor during the afternoon activities till 6 p.m.
Like a school resource officer?
Yeah,
or,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that it?
Just because there have been some complaints about people being able to come in and nobody's really there during the aftercare. Funding for that position is going to come out of the aftercare budget. In addition, all 3 schools in the district are going to have a visitor management system called Raptor installed. Anyone wishing to gain entry would have to go through the office, provide their ID to the secretary, and they would run a check and print out a visitor pass. The cost is going to be around $5,000 the first time, just because they have to purchase all the equipment and the software, and then it's about $2,000 a year after that. On December 20th, I attended the Treps markets at both Halstead and Miriam. It was great to see the students' enthusiasm and their creative ideas. I picked up a couple nice things from them, so that was fun. And that's all I have.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. I've seen other schools with that type of security system where there's one central checking point. There's not multiple doors of access, and I think that's worth the
just
money.
Worth money to one access point, have the check, and so it's good stuff.
Mr. Russo?
Sure. I hope everyone had a Merry Christmas. A couple schedule items. We will be closed on Monday the 31st and Tuesday the 1st. Offices will reopen on the 2nd at 8:30 a.m. Our reorganization is next week on the 3rd, which is Thursday at 5 p.m. No reception, just a meeting here. And wish everyone good health and happiness in the new year. Thank you.
All right, we'll move on to ordinances. We have a second reading public hearing for ordinance 2018-24, an ordinance of the town of Newton in the county of Sussex, New Jersey, adopting a redevelopment plan for certain properties on Spring Street, Diller Avenue, and Sparta Avenue, also known as the Diller Avenue redevelopment area, pursuant to the local redevelopment housing law and JAA 40A:12A-1 et sec. At this point, we'll open the meeting to the public. Any comments regarding this ordinance? Actually, can I have a motion to open to the public? Yeah, thanks.
Make a motion to open the public.
I'll second that.
Thanks. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, anybody from the public?
Seeing nobody coming forward from the public, I'll offer a motion to close that portion of the meeting.
Second.
All right, a motion by Deputy Mayor Flynn and second by Councilman Dixon. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Just to reiterate, this includes some of the comments from the planning board meeting in the ordinance. Is that
Mhm. Yeah, and then Jen can walk you through that.
Hi.
Jen Credidio with Madam Scotland Amendment, Redevelopment Council to the town. As Deputy Mayor indicated, the Planning Board had some recommendations and clarifications to the plan as introduced. In your package, you have an amended and restated ordinance which incorporates those changes with the exception of one, which was there was a recommendation to consider increasing the setbacks as the town planner testified at the planning board meeting. However, the setbacks that are in the redevelopment plan as introduced are consistent with the setbacks in your currently existing zoning. So that's set forth in the ordinance that that particular change would not be incorporated. The rest of the changes we feel are non-material and can be amended on second reading and still take action on the ordinance this evening. They include just recognizing that there's a force main easement and a parade easement, really a matter of information for people who are developing there. Suggesting additional buffering where there's an adjacent residential property, clarification with respect to the rail trail, and whether easements may need to be dedicated, and a few other changes. If you want me to just read
Yes, while you're grabbing that, counsel, so the, not concerns, but the issues that the planning board brought up with regard to there's some huge, main sewer line, water and sewer line utilities that run through there, and just making sure that we're clarifying that, so any developer that's developing that there knows. And as Councilman Diglio had requested at the last meeting on first reading, the parade easement, things like that.
Right.
Didn't think that would interfere with any particular business that might be going in there,
Right.
that those parades are happening off business hours type of
Yeah.
thing. The third thing about the additional buffering was because there are those, I think, 5 or 6 houses that are there as part of that backup to the property, was just taking any developer to come forward to take in consideration the privacy and the respect of those property owners, and to add perhaps some additional buffering of trees and bushes and
Yeah.
things like that. That's kind of what that refers to.
Yes, and as you indicated, the parade and sanitary force main easements, they would have been unaffected, their easements, you would continue your rights, but this way, it makes a lot of sense to recognize it in the plan. It helps everybody when they're putting together their application. The rail trail requirements, it was just a recommendation that where they're putting in the bicycle or pedestrian trail development, that a developer could look to the NJDOT and AASHTO standards. So again, it's just sort of a recommendation. The buffer requirements that the redeveloper should buffer to the extent practical buildings or structures which are adjacent to existing residential properties. Again, which is probably something your planning board would have required in any event, but it's definitely a good add. For mobility regulations, just to reference that right-of-way widening dedications may be required. Again, something that the planning board would have likely required. And then the last recommended change was in the building design standards, where large structures are constructed. There was a requirement for offsets placed every 80 feet, and also that roof lines must be varied, and both of those were changed to should, just to give the board a little more control when coming in with a particular design, to make sure you don't have blank walls and that it's really something that fits in with the character of the area.
Offsets every 80 feet in the building depth. Is that what you were just?
I believe that's
Building
correct.
facade, so you just didn't have one massive,
Unbroken.
unbroken,
Yeah.
structure,
On
plain wall,
architecture.
that there were some architectural elements, it just
Right.
more representative of the area and the town than
Yeah.
other developments that were there.
Yeah, it was a very positive meeting. I thought there was a lot of good conversation about it. So to incorporate these changes, you need to make a motion to amend on second reading the ordinance to include the adoption of the plan with these changes. You probably want to, if you're going to make that motion, you probably want to give one more opportunity
Yep.
to the public to
Agreed.
speak on that.
Yep. Okay. go
Can
ahead.
you just reiterate, what do the offset distances from the property line? Did we come to a determination
I think
on?
it's 3 feet
We're sticking
as a minimum, right? I'm looking at our planner. I believe the conversation was whether it was going to be,
What
it
is-
was sitting for 3 feet, and I think there was, the recommendation for the planner to perhaps look at 6 feet, and it sounds like the recommendation to be consistent with existing T4 and T5 zoning, that it would stay at 3 feet, if I capture that correctly.
It's a 3-foot minimum which exists now, Jessica Caldwell, for the record. It's a 3-foot minimum which exists now. So the idea was that we would provide for the opportunity and recommendation for a buffer rather than increasing the setbacks, because it's consistent with existing zoning. And then there's the rear part of the property as well, and most of those residences are set up against the street.
So just as a matter of education for Councilman Dixon and Councilman Stafford, so the town is in transit zoning, we did that a number of years ago, right? So coming up from this fine, T6, T5, T4, on, and including, there are some special zones, SD zones, and then we have our redevelopment plans, right? So when you do a redevelopment plan that overlays your existing zoning, it supersedes the zoning that's in there. That's why you have the redevelopment plan, and you care for all of these kinds of conditions in the redevelopment plan. One of the things that the planning board likes to see is that although there may be some changes and modifications to accommodate the redevelopment plan, that it's in the majority and typically is considerate of with the zoning that's already there. So when the setbacks that are in a T4, T5 zone are already within line with what Jessica has said in terms of the 3 foot off the property line building, et cetera, the redevelopment plan currently calls for that setback to be consistent with what's already there in T4, T5. So even if there wasn't a redevelopment plan and someone was to come in to build on that property, the setbacks would be the same as if they were building in the redevelopment plan. Did I say that right, basically? And so the recommendation of the planning board was to just have Jessica reconsider that, and what she's coming back and saying now is that it's her suggestion that since we added the buffering part, that we leave that the same to be consistent with the zoning that we already have.
Got it.
That's correct.
Yeah?
Thank you.
Well done.
Did I miss
Good.
anything?
No.
Okay. So having said that, and since there's an amended ordinance, I would like to entertain a motion to reopen the hearing to the public. Do I have a motion?
Make a motion to open
Okay.
the amended ordinance.
I will second the motion.
I have a motion to reopen to the public by Councilman Dixon and a second by Councilman Schlaffer. All in favor?
Okay.
Okay. At this point, would anyone from the public like to come and comment about the redevelopment plan? Okay.
Seeing nobody coming forward, I'll offer a motion to close that portion of the hearing.
I'll second the motion.
I have a motion to close the hearing by Deputy Mayor Flynn and a second by Councilman Schlaffer. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so we're ready to move on to 3. Yeah.
I will make a motion to act on the
I'll
ordinance.
second that motion.
I have a motion to act on ordinance 2018-24 by Councilman Schlaffer and a second by Deputy Mayor Flynn. Roll call vote, please.
There is a
Yes.
matter of clarification, that's a motion to act on the
Amended
amended ordinance.
ordinance 2018-24. Thank
Thank
you.
you, Council.
Yes.
Mr. Dixon?
Yes.
Mr. Flynn?
Yes.
Mr. Schleifer?
Yes.
Mayor LaBeouf?
Yes. Thank you to all of our professionals for your expertise and support and work on that ordinance. All right, we have no old business, so let's move on to the consent agenda. Mr. Russo, will you go through that, please?
Resolution 253 is the annual agreement for purchasing services through Sean Canning. 254 is a credit water sewer utility account. 255 is a refund. 256 is also a refund. 257 is a cancellation, as well as 258. We're hiring 2 new police officers that will start the academy, so that's Resolution 259. We have appropriation transfer 260, bills and vouchers
I'll give
260.
you both.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bills and vouchers 261, school crossing guard 262, release of executive session minutes 263. 264 will ask that be removed and defeated. The license is not ready to be transferred. 265 historic grant cancellation. 266 sewer engineer for PCI. 267 is a performance-based bonus for town manager. 268 is required disclosure contract for special projects for engineering for Mont McDonald. And 269 is maintenance bond amending Resolution 238 for Newton Town Center Urban Renewal Associates LP.
So yes, earlier this afternoon, we all received an email regarding Resolution 264-2018, and this is the transfer of the plenary retail consumption license for the restaurant formerly known as Tuscany Bistro. Thank you. We got a request to move that to the January 14th meeting due to some issues that are still being worked out between the buyer and the seller. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
And what are we doing in this, just for edit? We're just basically affirming the sale. I mean, it's a private party sale, and the town is just
Well, we license it.
stamping it.
When we're transferring, it has to go through resolution, and the governing body, you have the authority to transfer.
And it goes,
Said license.
does it, after that, go to the Department of Community Affairs or something like that?
No, it'll go from owner A to owner B.
Oh, okay.
And then
it
owner
ends
B
with
will then
itself.
own it as of the adoption of that resolution that evening.
Okay.
Right. I mean, we have so many licenses in town, but the clerk's office is responsible for making sure that fees are paid and that inspections are updated, that kind of thing. So we kind of oversee it once it's
Yeah,
transferred.
it can't be sold if it's in default or something like that, I'm sure.
Right. Liens, anything like that. All right, so we have a consent agenda to be offered with the removal of 264-2018. Do I have an offer? Motion?
Make a motion to approve consent agenda with the removal of 264-2018.
I'll second the motion.
All right, I have a motion by Councilman Dixon and a second by Councilman Schaffer. Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Dixon?
Yes.
Mr. Flynn?
Yes.
Mr. Schlaffer?
Yes.
Mayor LaFois?
Yes. I don't think we need an intermission.
So 264, I would motion second and defeat, just to clean the books since we're doing the reorg.
Right.
We're going to renumber it and, you know what I'm saying? So
Yep.
it's not getting
So
carried
we
or
don't have
tabled.
one that's carried over, okay.
Right, we're starting
And
fresh.
then we'll have a new resolution with
Yep.
a new number and
Yep.
a new year for, on January 14th, right?
Yeah,
Okay,
correct.
so can I have a motion to defeat, I guess remove and defeat 264-2018?
I'll make a motion to defeat 264.
I'll second that motion.
All right, I have a motion by Deputy Mayor Flynn and a second by Councilman Schlaffer. Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Dixon?
Yes.
Mr. Flynn?
Yes.
Mr. Schlaffer?
Yes.
Mayor LaFois?
Yes. Okay. Now, no intermission needed. We don't have any items for discussion this year, right? For this meeting?
Not tonight.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It's the end of the year. All right, no discussion items for this meeting. So once again, we'll open the meeting to the public. Anyone wishing to come forward? No? All right, any further council and manager comments? I hope that everybody had a very Merry Christmas. I want to thank Tom and Lorraine and all the staff at Town Hall for great work this year. Got a lot accomplished, lots of year of transition, and good things on the horizon for sure. And certainly want to thank all of our professionals, the volunteers in town, all of our first responders, and really everyone that does so much for the town, and they're oftentimes behind the scenes, but make the town great as it is. And certainly want to wish everybody a happy and safe New Year's. On to 2019, right?
You too.
Deputy Flynn, anything?
I just wanted to know if the issue with the water request allocation for the out of town, was that, I might have missed the letter, but did that get sent?
I'll confirm, I know draft is coming, but I'll confirm.
Okay. That's it.
All right. Councilman Schaffer?
Nothing for me.
Councilman Dixon?
Just looking forward to continuing our work together as a council to move Newton in a positive direction, continuing to provide reliable services while striving to find ways to limit the burden on the residents, and to wish everybody a safe and happy New Year.
Good segue into the budgeting season that continues. Nice.
Thank you,
Mr. Russo?
Councilman Dixon.
Well, thank you, Mayor.
Nothing else? All right, so I will entertain the motion to adjourn. It's 4:29.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion by Deputy Mayor Flynn and a second by Councilman Dixon to adjourn. Have a safe and happy New Year. Thanks, everyone.
Aye.
All in favor?
Aye.
Yeah.
Aye.